Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living. My name is Gary, and today we're going to be making French countryside bread.
Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living, a whole food, plant-based lifestyle.
You obviously need to clean your machine like I did over here. Snap it in place. And then you're going to need a sifter because you really need to sift your flour. Just scooping it out of the bag, you don't really know if you have 1 or 2 cups. Sometimes it's so packed. This is the best way to measure it. You're going to need a measuring cup, measuring spoons, a cooling rack, because it's really important to cool your bread.
Otherwise it gets wet on the bottom.
It can get spongy and wet.
Yes.
All right, now, right before this video, you saw my tips and tricks. Those are the basic tips and tricks that every bread making outfit uses. So it's just an example. All right, so we're gonna get right to it. Now you saw the list of ingredients that I said, where I said water, oil, salt, flour, sugar, dry yeast. This has to be in the correct order. Exactly the way it says in your book. Now if you're vegan and you don't want to use the oil, for the very first time use the oil, but the second time use applesauce. Some people say that it is a trade-off. It can work. Okay? Everything has to be super fresh. Like this is a brand new container of yeast. Brand new container of flour. If you use older ingredients, your possibility of your bread not coming out is increased.
But his salt is as old as the Himalayans, like him.
Yes, that's true. That's the one thing where you don't have to worry about it being fresh. But we're going to be using half the amount of salt. All right. Now what we're going to do is start measuring out our ingredients, putting in the pan in order, and I'm going to move the camera so you can see each of them one being applied. Okay, the ingredients are as follows. If you use the book, it'll make it a lot easier. The only thing that we're changing in this recipe is we're using half the salt. So here goes. You need 1 3/4 cups of water. This is filtered water, or you can use drinking water. You need 1 1/2 teaspoon of vegetable olive oil. I'm using avocado oil. You're supposed to add 1 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're using 3/4 of Himalayan pink salt.
The old stuff, that's old like him.
Old like me. Thanks, Amy.
Everything else is nice and fresh and brand new from the store.
This is my shoe set. You need 4 cups of flour. I just bought this. This is Gold Medallion, which is inside the sifter, and we're going to sift it right now, assuming the batteries are in.
He didn't like my old-fashioned hand sifter, so he got an electric one.
I'm a modern bread maker.
You should see all the flour that's getting around this room. The dogs are having a blast on the floor. They apparently like fresh flour.
Well, they know a good thing when they see one. You need 1 teaspoon of Herbes de Provence, because we both love French herbs. You need 1 tablespoon of sugar, which is in here. I use vegan sugar. This is called Marina pure cane sugar. You need 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and I went on my way to buy the bread machine dry yeast. we're going to cook it entirely in this machine since this is my first time of making bread in this Oster bread maker. My container, just stuff, is a 2-pound loaf pan. You do need a washer, which we've already done, and you have to make sure you put in this little flapper thing, which is what mixes up the dough, right dear?
Yep.
Now putting it, it shouldn't be as strong as to remove, but we haven't used this machine in a long time, so maybe it's stiffened up. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to, you've got to put things in the exact order of the recipe. So if you get something from the internet, follow their recipe exactly. Now, before we do that, when we get to the flour area, I'm going to re-measure again to make sure that I have only 4 cups of flour. We're going to bring the camera over so you can see as each ingredient is being placed into the metal pan.
Right. And the sous chef is going to hold the book. The first thing is measure and add liquid ingredients to the pan. So we've already measured.
Okay, so first one's water, right, Anna?
Water, and the other liquid ingredient is the avocado oil.
So water.
Is it turned on?
It says basic. Next you put the oil in.
Right. So first put in the flour.
Here's 1.
He's remeasuring because sometimes when you sift flour, it aerates it and it gets a little fluffier. So you don't need quite as much.
2.
And there's a French expression called mise en place
3.
that has all of your ingredients measured out so you can just kind of do the da-dum. So we're doing the mise en place that we did first to prepare, and now he's doing the da-dum in the bread maker.
See how much flour there's left? This is one of the reasons why you sift it and you remeasure. Okay, so there's the salt. Here's the Herbes de Provence.
Make sure the sugar stays in the middle of the
Couldn't we just make a hole?
Yeah, you're supposed to make a well. Make sure the sugar's in there because that's where the yeast is going to land. Is in your well.
There's water in there.
Well, try and keep it dry.
I can't, honey.
All right, well, just put the sugar in there. It's
Okay.
all going to get mixed up in just a sec.
Okay, all right. Next,
Next, the yeast
and then you put the yeast in the hole.
in the hole. The yeast must never come to contact with the liquid
It's kind
when
of.
you are adding ingredients. Measure the yeast and carefully pour it into the well.
Don't do that.
You just dumped the whole thing at one time.
Well, I'm a beginner. I make mistakes. Okay, what's next? Okay,
Snap the baking pan into the bread maker and close the lid.
Okay, we're gonna do. Watch this. See, can you see it? You cannot. There's a selection here. We're gonna press.
Well, press select button to choose the French setting.
Well, it won't go. Maybe you
Press.
have
Well, you're supposed to close the lid.
to. Oh, close the lid. Okay. Okay. Still won't work.
It won't go to French.
Okay, it's French. 3 hours and 50 minutes.
And then
What about the crust?
press the crust color button to choose light. I would try medium for the first one.
2, 3, 2P. No, it says 2L. Okay, L. Okay, light.
All right. And then press the start button.
All right, the start button. So all that was going on, you didn't see it, but you got to hear it. You press it right here.
It makes that sound. It's gonna make that
Let me
sound.
see if I can show you the inside. Camera's in there.
So now the bread maker is carefully mixing the water into the flour, trying to keep the yeast up out of the water so it doesn't die. Because the yeast can't touch cold water. was 1 o'clock here today on the Pacific Coast. It's a 3.5 hour cycle for the Breadmaker, and we're going to be driven crazy by the smell of the bread baking real soon.
All right, so we'll see you in a little bit. I'll be turning this on and off so we can see what the bread maker is doing over the next 4 hours.
The initial mixing is done, and the bread maker has protected the yeast. Now it's doing the big stir.
And there's some flour stuck on the sides.
It's going to keep sticking, and eventually it's going to form a nice dough ball.
All right.
Takes it a little time, a little stirring.
What's wrong with this machine?
This is normally what you'd be doing with your elbow grease.
I'll be doing that
The
soon enough.
machine is doing the elbow grease for you.
Just taking some shortcuts here.
Having handmade bread.
I wish I could give it that shadow. While the bread machine is doing its dough cycle, I just want to show you this. For one thing, brand new bread flour should be kept in the freezer. If you buy a good quality bread flour, you probably can get away with putting it in the refrigerator. That's what I always do. I've never had any problems with boll weevils or any bugs whatsoever. And this exactly explains the reason why you have to sift your flour and remeasure it, because you could be adding too much flour. On these recipes, they have to be exactly done perfectly. If they're not, your dough might not rise. It might give you another problem, whatever. Your dough might not rise. So that's the reason. So what I do is I put it in a 1 gallon container bag and I stick it in the refrigerator. So I'll be buying a lot more of this as I go along. All right, so then this is the time too that you actually clean your kitchen, put away your yeast back in the refrigerator because it can't be left out, and once it's open anyway. And put away your flour and clean up all your appliances, all the things that you use to make the bread, and then you just walk away and you let it do its thing. This time on this bread, we're gonna cook the bread in this Oster bread maker. But that's not the usual way my wife does it. Usually she lets the dough be made in here and then she cooks the rest of the bread in the oven. So we're gonna try some different things, and this is what we're doing on our first bread maker video. All right, one more thing. This Oster bread maker is 10 years old. 10 years ago, it went for about $110 for the machine. It came with this manual, and not very much in here is vegan. You have to substitute. This is a vegan bread, but I wasn't too happy about using the oil, but since it's my first bread, I wanted to make sure I had it in there. As I get better and better at making bread, I'll start omitting it or changing things. Okay, so instead of buying a $110 machine right now when you're going to the store after you've seen my video, go to the thrift store or go to garage sales. I have seen this exact model for $10 at a garage sale. People like me, or like my wife and I, we get busy, it gets put back in the back cupboard and it gets forgotten. So when I was going through the garage packing it up, I saw the Oster bread maker and I said, hey, let's make bread together. And that's exactly what happened today. All right, so we're gonna let you go. This is gonna take quite some while. It's only been running for 11 minutes and we have a total time of 3 hours and 50 minutes. See you in a little bit. So we have a minute left to go on the bread maker. And it looks wonderful. We decided to go light crust, so it's got a nice light golden top to it. So we're just gonna finish it up and then we're gonna use mittens to pull it out so that we can put it on this cooling rack. All right? So we're just gonna finish our minute. It's funny, the last minute takes the longest for some reason. Been waiting 2 hours and 55 minutes and it just feels like it's taking
the
forever.
dogs and the whole house cannot stand how good it smells in here.
That's right. That's exactly the problem.
Smells so yummy.
Ah, so there's the good news. So we're gonna pull it open, twist it out. Stop it, Ross. Somebody stopped. No, stop. Unplug it. Make sure it doesn't work.
Grab one of your silicone spatulas to make sure it's loose around all the sides.
Good idea.
They're in the other drawer, I think.
Oh, silicone spatulas. Maybe this thin one would be better.
Yeah, a thin one. Just kind of loosen it along the sides, make sure it's not cooked on. Is it loose?
It feels like it's loose. It's going down.
And then you just take the whole thing and sort of flip it over. Get the handle on it. There you go. There's your loaf of bread.
Now, this has got the paddle in it, so we're going to have to remove that later. We just can't forget it. And to not to forget it, we're just simply going to leave this out.
And it's light colored because we used the light setting for the crust, but I normally use the medium setting for the crust, so I expect it's going to be delicious.
It's going to be delicious bread because we've been smelling it all afternoon. So we're going to stop here, we're going to let it cool, and then we'll show you the next step. All right, so the bread is sufficiently cooled, and we're going to pull it off the cooling rack. And we're going to cut the bottoms first, right, love?
Yeah, I always cut the bottom first
And
because
about an inch, what do you think?
an inch is plenty thick, yeah.
You can hear that crunchiness.
Sounds crunchy. Smells tasty.
Yeah, gonna have to buy myself one of those.
Getting some butter out.
Okay.
Vegan butter, that is.
And then that's what it looks like. It's nice and soft in the center, and the outside is nice and crusty.
And will you cut that first piece in half? We can share it.
Absolutely not. I will not share my delicious bread with my wife. Okay, honey,
I
you
gotta
get
get a butter knife just a second.
let me get the plates. So in case you're curious, we're going to use Earth Balance, which is soy-free. This is usually the one that I usually have around the house. It's non-GMO. No, it's a plug towards them. I've bought it for the past 5 years and I've enjoyed it. Do I use other butters? I use all vegan butters. I use soy butter once in a while, just for a change.
So you kind of see these pieces of bread are quite large, so cutting them in half makes a lot of sense. It's, this end piece that has the crust on it is perfect for things like a hamburger. Would be
You
the
could
perfect
actually
size.
get away with putting a hamburger on this.
Yes, you could. And we've got another end piece to do it with, so Gary could easily wind up.
Well, this wraps up this video. If you don't know how to make bread, go down to your local thrift shop or the garage sales. I can promise you, you're going to see these older bread makers for $10 or $15. And then follow this recipe I just mentioned in this video, and you won't go wrong.
All right, try a bite. Ah!
It really helps when someone else has done it before.
Try a bite.
It would be great with marmalade on top of it.
I think you've got marmalade in the fridge.
All right, thanks a lot for watching us, and we will see you in our next video. Bye-bye now.
If you like what you see, subscribe. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up.